Hi everyone, I'm Candy from Susan's family. Today I'm going to show you a huggable animal toy, the koala version. This product is divided into the main part and decorations. We make them separately first. After completing them, we assemble them together. The main part includes legs, body, head, hands, ears, tail, nose and eyes. The crochet method for the two dolls is identical. Only the color schemes are different. Let's start with the legs. We use the foundation chain to start, then crochet in rounds counterclockwise. This doll is entirely crocheted using the X-stitch single crochet. It will simply be referred to as single crochet moving forward. While crocheting, you need to stuff fiber fill inside. The stitches used include CH chain, X single crochet, VSC 2-in-1, ASC 2 tog, and slip stitch. Please watch the demonstration. Let's first take a look at the table. In the table, R plus number indicates the round number. H plus number indicates the row number. The stitch instructions column describes the stitches and increases or decreases. When working the current round, the total stitches column shows the total number of stitches. Take out the corresponding yarn. For specific yarn, color schemes, and hook sizes, please refer to the detail page of our product and the charts. The foundation chain is 2ch. This means the method for starting is a foundation chain. Chain 2. Start by making a slip knot. For a clearer view, I'll demonstrate with cotton yarn first. Hold the yarn with your left hand. Hold the needle with your right hand. Insert it into the loop of the knot. Adjust the size of the loop. Then start chaining. First, make one chain. Feel it with your hand. There will be a small hole. Place a stitch marker on this hole to mark it. You can mark any thread you choose. Then make another chain. This completes the foundation chain. Next, we'll work on the first round. R1 is DOW2, 8x. Here, the brackets mean that the stitches in parentheses are worked into the same stitch. DOW2 means start crocheting from the second to last stitch. Count backwards from the side with the hook. 1, 2. This is the second to last stitch. This is the stitch marker position. The number before X indicates how many single crochets to work. Here it means to crochet 8 single crochets. Let's start with the first one. Insert the hook into the marked stitch. Place the hook above the yarn. Pull the yarn through. Now there are 2 loops on the hook. Yarn over. Draw the yarn through these 2 loops. That completes one X-stitch single crochet. We'll refer to it simply as a single crochet from now on. After completing the first single crochet, feel it with your hands. There are 2 strands of yarn in the stitch. It has a small dent or hole. This is the corresponding single crochet. It looks like a V shape formed by 2 strands. Use a stitch marker to mark this spot. If you don't have a stitch marker, you can use a paperclip or safety pin as a substitute. If you really can't tell the stitches apart, when wrapping the yarn for the last time, place the stitch marker on the 2 strands of yarn below the hook. Continue working single crochets in the same stitch. Since there are fewer stitches at the beginning, you can mark each stitch after completing it. Insert the hook into the marked stitch on the left side. Place it above the yarn. Draw the yarn through. Mark it. Yarn over again, and pull through all loops. That completes one single crochet. Continue working single crochets until you finish the entire round. Once completed, you can remove the stitch marker from the foundation chain. Finish with a slip stitch in the first single crochet of this round. That is, start crocheting at the marker on the left side. Slip stitch doesn't count as a stitch, you need to tighten it. The slip stitch is not indicated in the chart. In actual crocheting in rounds, always finish by joining with a slip stitch, and pull tight. That completes the first round. The side we are crocheting towards is the right side. Mark it with one piece of yarn. The other side is the wrong side. Move on to crochet round 2. R2 is 8V. The number before V indicates how many consecutive SC2 in 1 to work. This indicates crocheting 8 SC2 in 1 consecutively. Work 1 chain as the beginning chain for the single crochet. The beginning chain of the single crochet doesn't count as 1 stitch. Therefore, it is not indicated in the chart when there is no special instruction. At the start of each round, work a beginning chain. Then work 1 SC2 in 1 in the first stitch of the previous round. This is also where you insert your hook for the slip stitch. And it's marked with a stitch marker. Work 2 single crochets here. As you crochet, place the starting tail above the hook. Weave it in as you go along. One stitch. Make a mark. To differentiate the position of the first stitch, you can place another stitch marker on the first stitch for marking. Then insert your hook into the same stitch, and work a single crochet. Two stitches. For this round, you could also place a stitch marker on every stitch. That completes 1 SC2 in 1. To avoid confusion when adjusting later, as it might be hard to find the right position, don't remove the stitch marker from the first stitch of the first round yet. Continue working a SC2 in 1 in the next stitch on the left. Don't forget to weave in the ends. The second SC2 in 1 is now complete. You can now remove the second stitch marker from the first round. For this round, you need to work 8 SC2 in 1 in total. The remaining 6 all follow the method of working 2 single crochets into each stitch. For the following SC2 in 1, remove the stitch marker below after completing each increase. Then continue with the next increase. After completing the last SC2 in 1, check the stitch count. Start counting the stitches from the marked stitch. 1, 2, 3, 15, 16. This round should have a total of 16 stitches. After confirming the count is correct, remove the stitch marker from the first stitch of the previous round. After completing each following round, always check the stitch count before removing the stitch marker. The total number of stitches for each round is indicated in the corresponding table. I won't mention it further as we move on. Next, slip stitch into the first stitch. Be sure to pay attention. At the end of each round, you need to join with a slip stitch to the first stitch. Slightly tighten it. The excess tail from the starting chain can be woven into the piece as stuffing. This completes the second round. Continue to the third round. The total number of stitches for this round is identical to the previous round. Make one beginning chain. Let me emphasize again. At the start of each round, you need to work a beginning chain. I won't mention this further as we move on. For this round, pick up the stitches from the previous round, and work single crochets evenly. That is, one stitch corresponds to one stitch. Pay attention to placing stitch markers for marking. If there aren't too many stitch markers, you can also insert them into the corresponding position, like this after completing the stitches. Move the stitch marker along as you progress. Finish with a slip stitch join. That completes the third round. Continue to the fourth round. The working method for this round is identical to the third round. Everyone can follow the demonstration from the third round. Complete this round. That completes the fourth round. Next, we'll work the final round. Make one beginning chain. Then insert the hook under the next stitch, and work one single crochet. Work 1 SC2 tog. First, insert your hook into the left stitch, and pull the yarn through. Next, insert your hook into the adjacent stitch, and pull the yarn through again. Now there are 3 loops on your hook. Place a stitch marker below the first loop to mark it. Yarn over once, and draw the yarn through. That completes 1 SC2 tog. Continue working 3 single crochets in sequence. Work 2 SC2 tog. Three single crochets. One SC2 tog. One single crochet. Finally, join with a slip stitch. This completes the last round. Turn the right side out. End with one chain to secure. Leave a 30 cm yarn tail for sewing. You can now remove the stitch marker. That completes one leg. Follow this method to crochet another leg. After completing the legs, we will move on to the body and head. The starting chain and crocheting method are similar to the legs. However, the stitch count and round count are different. After completion, Stuff with an appropriate amount of fiber fill. I will first demonstrate the crocheting method for the body. Then I'll explain the head. Please watch the demonstration. The starting chain and round 2 is similar to the legs, only the stitch count is different. Follow the crocheting method used for the legs. Refer to the chart and crochet accordingly. I have already completed this part in advance. Pay attention to marking the right side. Now let's move on to round 3. R3 is X, V, X7. The parentheses indicate a group. Times a number indicates the number of times to repeat the group. Now we are familiar with crocheting using this yarn. Starting from round 3. Reduce the number of stitch markers. Usually, mark every 5 stitches with a stitch marker 2. Mark 1 round of stitches. You can also mark according to your own preferred stitch count. I will explain this round using 3 stitches as an example. At the same time, always mark the first and last stitches of each round. Let's start crocheting this round now. Make 1 beginning chain. Start with a single crochet. Don't forget to mark it. Then work a SC2 in 1. That completes one group, X, V. Mark every 3 stitches. Let me demonstrate another group. First, make a single crochet. Then work a SC2 in 1. Mark the 3rd stitch. This is the second group. You can see that I mark by the number of groups. Mark the last stitch of each group. For this round, repeat the X, V group 7 times. The remaining 5 are all worked in the method of 1 single crochet and 1 SC2 in 1. Finally, join with a slip stitch to the first stitch. Pull tight. That completes the 3rd round. Now let's move on to the 4th round. Make 1 beginning chain. Pick up the stitches from the bottom row, and work 1 single crochet. Remember to mark it. 1 SC2 in 1. Since it's not one stitch to another that is marked. When crocheting, you need to feel with your hands. There's a small hole. Pick this small hole and crochet. One single crochet. Remember to mark the last stitch? This completes the first group, X, V, X. Continue with the second group. Start with 1 single crochet. Feel with your hands for the position of a small hole. Then work 1 SC2 in 1. Finally, work 1 single crochet at the stitch marker position. Mark on the 4th stitch. That completes the second group. You can see that I marked this round according to the number of groups. You need to mark the last stitch of each group. And always mark the first and last stitch. Everyone follows the chart to crochet evenly for this round. This completes the 4th round. The stitches and crochet techniques have been demonstrated before. Just follow the chart for crocheting. When you encounter groups, you can mark stitch markers according to the number of groups. When you come across sections that require even crocheting, you can mark following the method used in the previous round. Crochet slightly slower while working. Ensure you insert into the corresponding position before crocheting. If you encounter a skein that is almost finished, leave about 10 centimeters of yarn tail. Then take another piece of yarn and leave another 10 centimeters yarn tail. Insert the hook into the stitch. Draw the yarn through. Then take the other piece of yarn. Place it behind the piece. And hold it with your left middle finger. Yarn over and draw through. This way, the yarn is joined. Continue crocheting as usual afterward. While crocheting, place the yarn tail above the hook to weave it. This is the method for joining yarn. After the body part is completed, leave a yarn tail. Then take out the stuffing. Fluff it up, and insert it inside. Everyone, insert it by turning like this. Make sure to stuff it evenly. Then set it aside for later use. The stitch marker from the last round can be left on for now. Below, I'll explain how to crochet the head using this completed sample. The method for crocheting the head is similar to the body, but the number of stitches and rounds are different. You can simply follow the chart to crochet. To make it more convenient to sew on the ears, you need to mark the stitches from the 4th round to the 12th round with a piece of yarn. You can use any spare yarn from home to make the marks. Try not to use the yarn from the kit, in case there isn't enough. Also mark the 6 single crochets in the middle of the 12th round. After completing it, set it aside for now. The stitch marker from the last round can be left on temporarily. Add an appropriate amount of stuffing inside. Next, let's learn how to crochet the hands. They are divided into the forearm and the upper arm. Both use the foundation chain to start. Work back and forth. After completion, sew a Velcro strap on top. I'll demonstrate the crocheting method for the forearm first. Please watch the demonstration. Get the yarn. Start with 3 chains first. On the first 2 chains, place a stitch marker on each stitch to mark them. After completing the foundation chain, then move on to the first row, work a single crochet on the left side, where the stitch marker is placed. Pay attention to the stitch marker placement. Work another single crochet on the next stitch marker. That completes the first row. You can now remove the stitch marker at the starting point. Now let's work on the second row. Chain 1. Turn your work. Pick up stitches from the previous row, and work single crochets evenly. Since the number of stitches is small, you can mark every stitch if needed. That completes the second row. Now let's move on to the third row. Chain 1. Turn your work. Pick up each stitch from the previous row, and work single crochets in sequence. That completes the third row. For the remaining rows, follow the demonstration for the third row, refer to the chart, and crochet to the corresponding length. Everyone's tension may vary, so you can adjust the number of rows accordingly. At the end, leave a 30 cm yarn tail for sewing. Once the length fits properly, cut a piece of Velcro to the matching size, and sew it on the side where you began with a chain. First, weave the starting tail. Let's consider the front arm side as the back of the hand. The other side will be the palm. Sew the Velcro onto the back of the hand. Cut a strand of the corresponding color yarn. Pull out one strand. Thread it through the sewing needle. Tie a knot at the end. Start by picking up one stitch along the edge. Then pass through the end where the knot is. Secure the tail in place. Now begin whip stitching. Stay about 1 centimeter away from the edge. Pick up the edge stitches evenly and sew them together. Finally, tie off and weave the tail. That concludes the crocheting method for the forearm. If you have a pet brush at home, you can gently brush it with the pet brush. Or you can use a fine-toothed comb as well. If you don't have either, you can also carefully pick through it with a needle. The crocheting method for the back arm is similar to the forearm. It's just the length that differs. Everyone can follow the crocheting method for the forearm, and crochet according to the chart for the back arm. After completing it, set it aside for later use. That concludes the crocheting method for the hands. Next, we will learn how to crochet the ears. They are divided into the outer ear and the inner ear. The crocheting method for the outer ear is similar to the body, just with a different stitch count. You can simply follow the chart to crochet it. I've already crocheted this part in advance. Next, we'll work on the inner ear. Start with a magic ring. Work back and forth. Please watch the demonstration. Take out the yarn. Begin with an adjustable magic ring. Chain 1 to start. Crochet 5 single crochets into the magic ring. Tighten the starting tail of the yarn. Tighten up the center of the piece. Do not join with a slip stitch to the first stitch. This completes the first row. Now let's move on to the second row. Chain 1 to start. Turn your work. Pick up the stitches from the previous row, and work 1 single crochet into each stitch. Pay attention because the piece has been turned over. The stitches should correspond to the top left corner position. Continue with 3 SC2 in 1. Finally, crochet 1 single crochet. This completes the second row. Next, let's work on the third row. Chain 1 to start. Turn your work. Pick up the stitches from the row below, and work 1 SC2 in 1 into each stitch. Repeat 3 groups of X, V. Finally, crochet 1 SC2 in 1. This completes the third row. For the next 2 rows, follow the previous demonstrations. Refer to the chart and crochet the corresponding stitches. I've already crocheted this part in advance. Don't cut the yarn after completing it. Pick up the edge of each row on the left side, and crochet single crochets. There's no specific number of single crochets required. Just make sure the piece stays flat. Finally, join with a slip stitch to the first stitch of the last row. Leave a tail of yarn and thread it into a sewing needle. Sew it onto the outer ear. Take the outer ear and press it flat. Place the inner ear on top of the outer ear. The right side of the last row of the outer ear should face up. Position it about 1 round away from the edge. Roughly centered is fine. There's no specific sewing method required. Just make sure it's sewn securely. Everyone can also sew the edges of the piece's sides. This will stop the edges from rolling up. I won't sew this part here for demonstration purposes. Finally, tie off and weave in the ends neatly. That concludes one ear. Now everyone can crochet another ear. Once completed, set it aside for later use. Next, we'll learn how to work on the remaining parts of the main body. Let's start with the tail. The crochet method is similar to the one used for the legs. It just has a different stitch count. You can simply follow the chart to crochet it. After you're done, let's move on to the nose. Use the foundation chain to start. Crochet in rounds counterclockwise. The eyes are pre-made, so there's no need to crochet them. Now I'll demonstrate the method for crocheting the nose. Please watch the demonstration. Take the corresponding yarn. Start with a foundation chain. Begin from the second to last stitch. Pick up one strand on the top of the chains, and work 3 single crochets sequentially. Work 4 single crochets on the last chain. Rotate the piece. Pick up the other 2 strands from the chain. Work 2 single crochets sequentially. Mindful not to insert into the same position as the previous 4 single crochets. Finally, make a SC2-in-1. Join with a slip stitch to the first stitch. That completes the first round. For the remaining rounds of the nose, all the stitches have been demonstrated before. Please follow the previous demonstrations. Refer to the chart and finish crocheting. Leave a yarn tail for sewing together. That concludes the nose section. Set it aside for later use. Assemble everything once all decorations are completed. After finishing the main piece, let's move on to the decorations. The decorations include the hoodie and the apple. We'll start with the hoodie. It consists of the hat and the clothing. Let's start with the hat. Begin with a magic ring method. Crochet in rounds counterclockwise. The new stitches used include half double crochet, HDC 2-in-1, double crochet, DC 2-in-1, treble crochet, and TR 2-in-1. Please watch the demonstration. Take the corresponding yarn. Start with a magic ring. Then working 2 chains. These 2 chains don't count as one stitch. Next, crochet the corresponding number of half double crochets into the magic ring. If you do not know where the very first stitch is, when you yarn for the last time, place a marker on the first stitch to mark it. After completing one stitch, this stitch, the braid at the top right is its stitch. Place a marker on the last stitch as well. Tighten the starting tail of the yarn. Tighten up the center of the piece. Finally, pick up the first stitch, and join with a slip stitch. This completes the first round. If you encounter a situation where your grip is too tight, causing the fuzz on the yarn to separate, after tightening it, and it cannot be restored, use a sewing needle. To loosen the starting point here, take this section and place it behind. Hold it with your left middle finger. Then yarn over. This resolves the issue. Next, we'll work on the second round. Since this yarn makes it hard to see the stitches clearly, let me show you how to identify them. There's a gap between each stitch. First, find the stitch post. Then look at the top right. These 2 strands form one stitch. You'll crochet into these stitches. Make 2 chains to start. This does not count as a stitch. I won't repeat this later on. Work a HDC 2-in-1 into the stitches in sequence. A HDC 2-in-1 means working 2 half double crochets in the same position. You can place a stitch marker on the first stitch to mark it. This completes the HDC 2-in-1. The next stitch is a DC 2-in-1. That means working 2 double crochets in the same stitch. This completes the DC 2-in-1. Continue with DC 2-in-1 afterward. Keep going until you have 1 stitch left. Everyone, work a little slower here. Work a HDC 2-in-1 on the last stitch. Finish with a slip stitch join. This completes the second round. For the next 2 rounds, the stitch groups have been demonstrated before. Everyone follow the chart to complete these 2 rounds. Work a little slower while crocheting. Identify the correct stitch. As you work, you can roughly see a shadow like this. This is the stitch post. Pick up the shadow on the right side and pass through. It's the stitch. If you still can't tell clearly, place a stitch marker every few stitches. Now let's work the final round. Make 1 beginning chain. Pick up the left stitches and crochet 8 single crochets in sequence. One half double crochet, 3 double crochets. The next stitch is a TR 2-in-1. That is, crochet 2 treble crochets in the same position. Start with the first one, yarn over the hook twice, insert into the stitch, yarn over and draw through. Yarn over again, pull through the first 2 loops on your hook. Repeat this 3 times. That's how you finish a treble crochet. Crochet another treble crochet in the same position. This completes the TR2-in-1. Crochet 1 treble crochet on the left stitch. Crochet 1 TR2-in-1 on the next stitch. The following stitches have all been demonstrated before. Just follow the chart to crochet. Finally, join with a slip stitch. This completes the last round. Fasten off and weave in the ends. Weave in the yarn tails on the wrong side. That concludes the hat. Get the yarn. Start with a foundation chain. Place a stitch marker on the first stitch to mark it. Since there are a lot of stitches, you can place a stitch marker every 6 stitches. Always place a stitch marker on the first and last stitch. After completing the foundation chain, insert the hook into the first chain, and join with a slip stitch. Pay attention not to twist the chain. That completes the foundation chain. Now let's crochet the first round. Make 1 beginning chain. Pick up one strand on the top of the chain and work single crochets. Place a stitch marker on the first stitch to mark it. This is the starting stitch marker. Except for the first and last stitches, you can remove the other stitch markers while crocheting. Or you can also leave them on. Crochet a little slower when working. If you can't find this strand, just pull the yarn a bit. You will see a hole like this. The strand in front of it is the one you need to crochet. Check the number of stitches as you work. Continue all the way down until you finish this round. Place a stitch marker on the last stitch to mark it. After completing, join with a slip stitch to the first stitch. This completes the first round. For the following rounds, the stitch groups and crocheting methods have been demonstrated before. Follow the chart. Keep crocheting all the way to the last round. Once finished, crochet one chain to secure. At the end, you need to fasten off and weave in the ends. Next, we'll work on the edging. I'll demonstrate using this small sample. The number of rounds is not for reference. Position the starting point upward. Then, from any spot on the side where you started, pick up the remaining 2 strands of the chain and rejoin the yarn. That is, the insertion point for the first round of single crochets. Here, I'll start joining the yarn at this marker on the left side. Insert your hook. Get the yarn. Make a slip knot. Draw the loop through. Adjust the size of the loop. Joining the yarn is complete. Make one beginning chain. The first 3 stitches need to be worked together with the 3 stitches of the hat. Take out the hat. Find the middle 2 T are 2 and 1. That's a total of 4 stitches. Plus 2 more stitches on either side. That makes 6 stitches in total. Place stitch markers on these 6 stitches to mark them. Turn the last round of the hat so that the wrong side faces you. We'll take the 3 stitches on the left side. Pass through both the hat and the clothing stitches together. Behind is where you join the yarn. Place a stitch marker to mark it. Continue to crochet 2 stitches together as you join them. The stitch adjacent to the joining position is located at the back. From this angle, you can see that the thread is in a slightly angled state. Pick up the insertion point of this thread. This is the second stitch of the combination. Continue with the third stitch. Now these 3 stitches are completed. Afterward, just continue with regular crocheting. Keep crocheting until there are only 3 stitches left. Crochet a little slower. You can separate them like this to take a look. These 2 threads are being crocheted in the same position. Check the number of stitches as you crochet. The total stitches should be the same as the first round. Now we've reached this position. Pick up the 3 stitches marked by the stitch marker on the hat. Crochet them together by combining them. After completing it, you will notice, by crocheting this way, we can cover the slip stitch marks. Finally, join with a slip stitch. Break the yarn and weave in the ends. Everyone should make sure to weave all the yarn tails. That's how you complete the hoodie. Next, let's learn how to make an apple. It is divided into the main part, the leaves, and the stem. Let's start with the main part. The crochet method is similar to the body. The only difference is the number of stitches. You can all just follow the chart to crochet it. Add a little stuffing while crocheting halfway through. After completing the final round, leave a yarn tail of about 30 centimeters. Use it for closing the opening. Thread the reserved yarn into a darning needle. Proceed to close the opening. Pick up the front loop of each stitch in sequence, which means passing the closer to you strand through. Then pull it tight slowly. That's how you close the opening. Next, pass through from the starting point. Give it a tug. Press and pull at the same time, so you don't break the yarn. Pass it through the closing area again. Skipping one stitch. Creating a dent on both sides. To prevent it from unraveling, you can pull it one more time. Finally, tie off and weave in the ends. That concludes the main part. Next, get the yarn and crochet the leaves. Start with a foundation chain. Then work from the second to last stitch. Pick up one strand on the top of the chains and work one single crochet. Two half double crochets. One SC3 in 1. Which means working 3 single crochets in the same position. Rotate the piece as you crochet. That completes the SC3-in-1. Next, pick up the other 2 strands from the chain, and work 2 half double crochets. Be mindful not to insert into the same position as the 3 single crochets. Finally, work 1 single crochet on the last stitch. Then join with a slip stitch. Break the yarn and sew it off. Thread the yarn tail from the starting side to the closing side. Tie a knot and secure it. Make sure to weave in more ends for neatness. That concludes how to make the leaf. For the stem, simply start with a foundation chain. Then work single crochets from the second to last stitch of the chain. Finally, break the yarn and sew it off. Everyone remember to weave all the yarn tails. That completes the apple. Next, let's assemble everything. Take the hoodie and place it around the body. Then sew the head onto the body. Thread the reserved yarn into a sewing needle. Sew together one stitch to another. There's no specific requirement for the sewing method, just make sure it's sewn securely. Here, I'm sewing one stitch at a time. You can remove the stitch markers once it's sewn. Slightly tighten the yarn. If you really can't find it, just sew evenly. While sewing, you can add a little more stuffing inside. This will make it firm and symmetrical. After sewing, tie off and weave in the ends neatly. That's how you sew the body and head together. Next, find the 6 stitches at the front of the head that you marked earlier. This is the centered position on the front side of the head. Rotate the hoodie's hat backward to align its centered front and back. Ensure it's centered both front and back. Take the ears and sew them onto the sides. From the 4th round stitch to the 12th round stitch. The bottom edges of the 2 ears should be spaced about 15-16 centimeters apart. The top parts of the ears should be spaced about 9 centimeters apart. With the inner side of the ear facing you. Or you can also adjust the position according to your preference. Secure it on the head first to check the effect. After the ears are secured well, take the nose and fix it next. Attach it at the marked 6 stitch position. Marked vertically. It occupies the position of 2-3 rounds. The side with the slip stitch marks should be on top. You can also place the pre-made eyes on top to check the effect. After it fits properly, start sewing the ears first. Thread the reserved yarn through the sewing needle. There is no specific requirement for the sewing method, just make sure it's sewn securely. The piece is sewn together by pressing it flat. Pick up the yarn from the surface of the head, and sew it together with the edges of the ear. After confirming that the ears are sewn well, tie a knot and weave in the ends. The marked yarn can be removed now. After one side is sewn, proceed to sew the other side. Once the ears are sewn, move on to sewing the nose. Observe while sewing to ensure it isn't being sewn crooked. If it becomes crooked, adjust it in time. After completing everything, take out the pre-made eyes, and stick them on both sides of the nose. You can slightly brush away some of the surface fuzz. Keep a slightly distant position. This way, the eyes will be sweave on properly. Next, we'll sew the hands. First, I'll explain the position using the finished product. Since it's a pair of toys, they are symmetrical on both sides. So, the arms are roughly sewn below the nose. Slightly to the left. Or slightly to the right. Sew the clothing onto the body. Pay attention that the back of the hand should face you. One hat faces left. The other one faces right. First, rotate the hats to their corresponding positions. Then start sewing. Make sure to weave in more threads. Next, sew the tail. It should be roughly aligned with the hat and ears. Sew it underneath the clothes. It can be close together, or you can leave a little distance. Generally, it's like pressing it flat and sewing. Sew vertically. Now the tail is sewn. Next, take out the legs. Arrange them in a Y shape with the tail. Sew them underneath the clothes, leave a slight distance. This way, it can sit upright on the table. There should be a space of 5-6 centimeters between the legs. The two toys are symmetrical on the left and right sides. The method is identical to how you sewed the tail. After sewing, you can press it slightly. Next, take the forearms and have them hug around each other. Use the back arms to measure the sewing position for the back arms. Adjust how tightly or loosely they hug based on personal preference. The sewing method for the back arms is the same as for the front arms. Pay attention to the palms of the back arms. Just like the front arms, have the back of the hands facing toward yourself. Finally, take the apple and sew it onto the head. Place it in a position based on personal preference. First, cut a piece of yarn. Take the apple and sew it onto the head. Pick up the yarn from the surface of the head to sew it together with the bottom of the apple. Begin by leaving a little yarn tail, then sew one stitch. Tie a knot with the starting yarn tail to secure it. Let's sew it one more time. Finally, weave the yarn inside the stitches. That's it for sewing the apple. Next, take the blush. Apply it a little at a time. Rub it on the face. If you have a pet brush at home, use the brush to gently comb the fleece. If you don't have one, you can skip this step. Up to this point, that concludes the entire product explanation. If you have any questions during the process, don't hesitate to reach us via our website, Susan's Family, supporting your handwork experience, sharing the joy of life. Thanks for watching everyone. See you in the next episode.